Hello, and welcome to the Employee Safety Podcast from Alert Media, where you'll hear advice from experienced safety leaders on how to protect your people and business. I'm Peter Steinfeld. Today, I'm speaking with Chad Bosquez, Head of Physical Security at Chime, the online banking and money management platform. Chad has extensive experience in safety and security management, including former leadership roles at DocuSign and Twitter, and a career in public law enforcement. In this episode, Chad discusses the experience of developing and scaling Chime's comprehensive physical security program and gives practical advice for any organization looking to up-level corporate security. Let's listen in. Hey, Chad, it's so good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Excited to be here.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Can you start by just telling us a bit about your background in security and your current role at Chime?
Yeah, my background in security started probably about 13 years ago. After my career in law enforcement ended, I knew I wanted to start working in the corporate security environment and eventually, hopefully, lead some kind of physical safety and security operations. And then from there, I got into Bank of America. And Bank of America really kind of set forth my journey into corporate security. I learned a lot through the bank. And after a couple of years of that, I moved on to the tech side of corporate security, where I moved on to a little known company called Maxim. Maxim Integrated, now Analog Services, is in San Jose area here. And I was there, and then I moved on to a company called VMware. And at VMware is where I met my mentor. He promised to kind of show me the way, knew what my plan was, where I wanted to be. And so I stayed there for a couple of years and learned under him. And then I went to a company called Twitter, which everybody knows now as X. And from there, I ran their security operations. After Twitter, I wasn't there very long because a company called DocuSign called. And DocuSign asked that I start a security program there, build a program for them as a director of security. And I had to jump at that opportunity just because of the exposure that I was going to get. And it was kind of like where I wanted to be. After 4 years of DocuSign seeing it go IPO, I moved on to a company called 10X Genomics and created the same kind of program for them. They needed someone to start their program and build it to what it is today. And after a couple of years there, I came to this great company called Chime. Chime is not a public company yet, but eventually they will be at some point. And they said, hey, we need a physical security program. We need someone to start operations. And that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years now. I've just a little over 2 years. And I've got some operations going and some other security processes and policies in place here.
That's absolutely a great background. And the part I'd like to start with first is understanding that transition from law enforcement to private corporate security. How did your time in law enforcement inform how you approach threat management and risk assessment?
I think law enforcement helped me just identify threats, criminal patterns and behavior, conducting like any kind of like investigation. And then that just helped assessing risk, right? I mean, you worked for a community and the police department I worked for was pretty large, known in the Bay Area. And so it just helped me develop strategies to mitigate those kind of risks effectively, to think critically and assess situations quickly. It was very important. And then those actions based on the level of threat is where I came to, some kind of conclusion, obviously, that was going to assist in every way. And it became valuable, especially in threat management. And just my quick decision-making and effective responses were crucial, like in minimizing all the risk and ensuring the safety of the community at the time when I was in law enforcement.
Was it difficult to make that transition or was it natural?
I feel like some people may think it's easy and some may think it's hard, but I felt like in the middle. I feel like if you prepare, after law enforcement in your career what you want to do and you get started, it could be, let's say, in middle ground. If you don't, you try to jump into it, it could be frustrating because people just know you as a law enforcement officer and they don't know you as anything else. And there are some reservations about that, right? Like, how are they going to act in a corporate environment? So I feel like being prepared a little bit, talking to people, networking, really assists in that transition.
What's the number one thing, based on your experience, you'd recommend to someone who's making the transition focus on as they make the transition?
Like I did, create a profile on LinkedIn, start networking, go to ASIS conference. ASIS is a security conference that happens annually. ISC is like a security conference that happens. It's in Vegas. And if you can get that by your manager, great. But it's just great networking. It tells you about tools and technology for physical security. You get to meet a lot of other people, peers that are doing the same thing as you and having discussions around what you need to do, where you need to start. And that's what I tell people. Like, you're not going to always start at that director high level. You may start at like a lower level as a manager just because of your experience and learn from it. get a mentor like I did when I started. And, I think that helps the most.
Well, speaking of building from experience, which you have a lot of, I know that you oversaw the development of Chime's physical security program. So, what were your goals for the program and what was the development process like?
My goals were obviously like meeting all the main stakeholders. It was a small company. They didn't have some of the tools and operational ideas of physical security embedded already. And that's what I came in for, to meet with all the exec leaders, to let them know, like, have a discussion around, hey, these are the things I'd like to do. This is why I'm here. This is why you brought me here. And I really need your input of what you think, how, we should get the chimers, we call them, which are employees, to get their buy-in. What do we need to do? Because, I don't want them to think like I'm that physical security presence that's never going to let them get to work because they don't have a badge or they don't have access into the office. We're going to make sure that they get in. And so just having those discussions ahead of time and communication is really important in this role.
So, you can't just come in and act like you have a mandate. You have to really sit down and understand what the culture is like and then insert your ideas gently to make sure people will accept them.
100%. And every company has a different culture. And if you don't know the culture, if you're not talking to people, talking to exec leaders or what that culture is about, because it's already created, that they already have at a higher level, then, you're not going to get buy-in, because most employees are going to look at you and say like, well, why do I have to do this? Is this a policy? Am I supposed to do this? If I don't do it, what's going to happen to me? And I've learned those lessons. And so now I don't get those questions because I'm ahead of the game and I kind of know what steps to take.
Any interesting stories you can share on something that might have backfired? Of course, remove any names.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many I could tell you, Peter, but I mean, I think the one is trying to start some kind of program, and it could be tailgating. It could be, making sure you're
Mm,
wearing your badges all the time, and everyone has this issue.
yep.
Like, why do I need to do it? Well, we need to do it because if someone were to come in behind you, they could do some very bad things into our company, steal your laptops. We've had it. I've had it in my past where somebody did from the street make it into one of our offices in a North America location, and then no one knew who they were. Didn't even bother to ask them. They weren't wearing a badge, and they just started loading up laptops, right? And so
Wow.
I use that as like a learning lesson and saying I don't want that to happen again. That was very scary, and thankfully they were just there to take laptops, right? What if they were thinking something more dangerous or terrible? And I would never want that to happen to our employees because that's on me.
I think that's a fantastic lesson learned, that you really have to explain the why behind it and offer stories, because it becomes real to them if you offer a real story and then you show that the outcome could have been a lot worse, and it makes them think twice next time they scan that badge. They're like, yeah, this is why I'm doing it.
For sure. You have to be creative because people do think like, why am I scanning my badge? Are you trying to track that I'm coming into the office? And so you have to just be really creative of why you're doing it. And it's more for the safety and security of our offices and our employees.
Yeah, it's really funny. The framework that people come to a conversation with is entirely different. When you come to the conversation saying, I need you to scan your badge, you're thinking safety, safety, safety. That's all I care about. The employee is thinking, what are you trying to track me?
Exactly. Like that's always the first question. It makes me laugh. But, in the past, I probably would have answered it differently. But now I've learned just to say, no, it's not about tracking. That's not my job to track you. My job is to make sure that you're safe, while
Yeah.
you're here in the office.
Well, as you spent time at Chime, I know you've been there for a little while now. How has the physical security program grown or maybe evolved since its inception?
Yeah, immensely. I didn't have a lot of resources. So at the start, I used a lot of contracted security services to help me out with security here at the office. And that could be ensuring levels of security before we're in an office building. And in that office building, we have a couple floors. And on those floors, I have a level of security, whether it be a person, whether it be badge in, or like our lobby area, which security fortunately gets to own here at Chime. We obviously hire the right people to make sure that they're friendly and they look like they fit, because I don't want that presence to where people don't think like, oh my gosh, like what am I coming into? It's just been building a very friendly, culturally great environment for our chimers to come in and feel like, I love coming here. This is great coming here because everybody from security to our culinary folks, are just very friendly. But again, it was hard to go back to your question, is just kind of getting all of the pieces in place, let's say mass communications, and it could be from our travel security, which we had none. How are we managing that? To just documenting policy and process. And coming to Chime, it's the difference is we're not a bank. Obviously we're the middleman in an app, but a lot of people get upset. It has to deal with money, and when their money is affected, which I completely understand, how do we handle when something goes wrong with them and we get some type of threat? And it could be either to our office, our chimers, our exec staff. And I had to create a program for that just to make sure we triaged it and to ensure that no issues were going to happen later on.
What's important to focus on first when you have either limited resources or you're just starting out? I know it can be different depending on the organization, but in your mind, what are the top maybe one or two things you would focus on?
For me, I talk to all our execs first. And I would ask, and most of the time you're going to get a different answer, but I would say, what keeps you up at night? Physical security related. I know cybersecurity. I know the bad actors that can come and hack us and do those kind of things. I get that. That's scary because that can really ruin a company and take a company down. But physical security wise, what about you walking into the office from elevators or outside through our turnstiles? Do you feel safe? When you're in the office, do you feel safe? Even when you're outside of the office and you're traveling, do you feel safe? Like, what are those things that you can tell me that you would like to see? And so, I got pretty decent feedback when I kind of approached it that way. And feedback was, Chad, we just want to make sure that we don't have to hear about anything and that you're handling it before it gets to us. And
Mm.
I could give you examples, just the threats that come through. And if it's a local threat, I don't tell anybody. I manage it first and then I tell the right people because I don't want them to get freaked out or scared about being in the office because that's happened. I want them to know I have it taken care of, and being in law enforcement in the past and having the contacts I do, I know how to handle it and who to contact to ensure that, everyone in the office is going to be as safe as they can be while they're in the office. And it's funny because technology now, we have technology where you can use your cell phone, badge into an office. And I totally get that. I understand that's probably the future of where we're going. But what if your phone was stolen? Or what if you don't have a security program that's solid with a good solid process where someone comes in and says, hey, I'm Chad Boscas, I work for Chime and my phone's not working to get me in. And that person's able to get in and again, do bad things behind your back. And so when I started, I really wanted badges. I know it's old school, but I feel like not everyone knows me. They may know my face, but they don't know my name. And so now when you look down at the badge, you see my name, Chad. And that goes
Mm.
for up to our CEO, our CFO, our founders. They all wear their badges because they know, like, obviously we know them, but they want to know everybody else in their company because it's gone from 300 to 400 people to now 1,800 or plus or something. So that was important for me too, is just to make sure, hey, we can all identify each other and know that, we're a chimer.
Well, now that you've grown several programs, how do you and your team go about evaluating the effectiveness of the program? How do you iterate and make things better?
Yeah, I think you're always having to assess your program, always do an assessment. Some people say like, well, how often do you do it? Well, it's how often you want to do it. I don't feel like there's a right or wrong answer. If you want to do it monthly, do it monthly. It might be a lot, but that's okay. I mean, some people just like that. I do mine probably every 6 months. So halfway through the year, I'll do it and just be like, hey, what kind of new technologies are out there? What do we need to do? Like, do we have any challenges or gaps that we need to kind of like close, things that'll help us in our operations? And then let's start implementing it if it's going to help us. Is it a cost savings, right? Every company is always about sometimes cost savings. And especially in physical security, it's hard to get budget. It's hard to get that financial backing. But as long as you can justify the reason for it and have a good reason, you can't just say, hey, we need this. I realized that, especially with mass communications, because for me, it was, you need this. Everybody needs it, not just physical security. If something goes down IT related, I know we have other internal communications and comms that we use, but not everybody sees that. With mass communications, it goes to their phones. They see it on an email and a text. And so when you implement those things, I think it's helpful and people feel like they're being taken care of and they have that advanced notice of things.
One of the best ways to improve your program is just to see when things don't work and then iterate from there and make it better for the next time. Can you give us an example of a time when Chime put its physical security program to the test?
Man, I have so many examples too prior to Chime that just were really good. But here at Chime, being that we're a little smaller, we don't have as many locations. We still have issues, right? We have remote employees, and how do we take care of those remote employees? How do they know what's going on with Chime or around them? So we created a implementation with Workday, obviously, which is our HR tool to know where everyone is living. We do get that information. We don't share it with anybody. It's very confidential with us. But what's good to know is, for instance, like there were hurricanes and tornadoes and things that were going on in Florida in the Midwest, we were able to know that what chimer was in the path. And we had one that was going on the tornadoes in the Midwest. And it was scary because we did have 3 of our employees that were in the path of one of these tornadoes. And tornadoes are terrible, obviously. And when we reached out to them, obviously we try to give them a little time because it's so traumatic. They need to move to a safe place. If they have family, they got to ensure their family's okay. These folks were responding to our reach out from mass communications within like 40 minutes, which I feel is great because they don't have to do that with everything that's going on with them. And they let us know that they were okay. And the important thing about that is being able to let our HR or our people team know, hey, we reached out to XY employee. They said that they're safe, but they did have to leave their house. Could have been some issues with their house, meaning could have been destroyed via the tornado. They need some place to stay. Like, how can we help them? And then that gets the people team going in motion to also assist them in kind of any kind of recovery efforts.
Oh, that's fantastic. And did you get good feedback from the employees after they went through that experience?
100%. They were just very thankful. In the back in the day, I used to get, why am I on this? Why am I
Mm.
getting contacted? Not anymore, because they know we're only reaching out for very emergency related type issues and nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's so important. It goes back to the badge issue. It's like, why do you have a badge? It's not so I can track you. It's just so I can keep the building safe. Why do I have your
Correct.
contact information? Why do I know where you live? It's not so I can track and watch you. It's literally just if something bad happens, I can reach out and help ahead of time, or right after, I can check in on you and see if you need assistance.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well, what other advice do you have for security leaders that are in the process of building and scaling programs to match the growing needs of their organizations?
I think the most important is just keeping up with all the trends of things that are going on. Like I'm, again, part of a lot of physical security groups that I don't even want to name off because most of them are acronyms that I probably couldn't even remember. But, obviously to get that kind of help and find out what people are doing, whether it be at a large 18,000 plus person company or the Chime company that's, 15, 1,800 employees, it's all the same. That's what I just try to tell people. And so use your technology, benchmark, talk to folks, and measure your performance. And that could be by engaging with employees, engaging with leadership, asking if, hey, is this working? Is this something you think we should continue to do? Because I feel like that's important. And then when you audit it and you get all your metrics from it and know that you're going by your KPIs and everyone's pleased with it, then you've been a success. And I'm not saying like I've always been a success. I just kind of know the process. And even now, I still get some kind of roadblockers, right? Because it's always about questioning, is this something that's useful? And when you explain it, people understand it. And that's where you have to be when you're starting a program. Just make sure, you stand your ground, you know what you're talking about because that's the most important.
Well, I think you've had a really impressive career moving from law enforcement and the public to private corporate security. What would you say is the one thing that you're most proud of when it comes to corporate safety or security in general?
For me, it's staying true to who I am and where I wanted to go with my career after law enforcement. Some people, they may delineate, they go somewhere else, and that's totally understandable. I know a lot of my ex friends that were law enforcement felt comfortable in law enforcement after 30 years. I didn't put in the full 30 years. And so for them, that's all they knew. And that's fine. But for the ones that want to move on, just know like there is a path. Stay with your path. Don't get frustrated. There are going to be blockers. There are going to be some red tape you have to go through, but just know that you're the subject matter expert, know how to crawl through that stuff and have some backing of your data of what you're talking about. And I think you'll be okay. And I also want to just add, like, for me now, it's about mentoring. I had a mentor when I first started, and I feel like it's important for everyone to have some type of mentor that's been in physical safety and security in the corporate environment for a while and get that kind of feedback. I still have officers now that have retired that call me all the time and ask me about, hey, Chad, this job's coming forward and they're contacting me. What do you think? And I just give them my honest feedback. And that's what I want. I want to mentor folks wanting to come in so that they could get to where I am.
What should you look for in a mentor if you're looking for one? And how can you be a good mentor?
So I, in my early days, would always ask, hey, I love it here. I love working here. I want to learn under you. I just want to know how I get to your level. And I have had managers in the past say, I'm not here for that. I don't have time for that. And that's fine. I totally get that and I understand. And I didn't take offense to it. However, I, in my mind, still wanted to get to a certain level. And so like I said, I networked. And when I got to VMware is where I found my mentor, explained to him what I wanted. And he said, Chad, just give me this time, give me this much time, I'll get you there. And if you give me that, then I know that you'll be successful. And so that was just really important for me at that time to move forward.
And then being a mentor yourself now, what are some of the top things you try to focus on when you work with people?
Slow down. I have somebody now he's great. And I've had a couple other folks that have just been great. And I just try to say, like, slow down, let's get all our ducks in a row, because some people just like to move forward and go and get things completed. And I said, sometimes that matters. Like, we have to do that. We don't have a lot of time. But if there are some instances where we could take our time, let's be strategic about it. Let's look into our data so that we have facts to prove like why we're doing things, and then we move forward. And I feel like it's been really helpful to them because they go, oh, I get it now. So that's just important to me to make sure hey, slow down. We're going to get there, but this is the way we should do it.
Excellent. Well, this conversation's been great. I really appreciate you being on the show today. Learned a lot.
Thank you, Peter. Again, great seeing you again. And I enjoy these type of things. So I just really appreciate you guys asking me to be on and talk about my experiences.
Likewise. To learn more about Chad and his work with Chime, click the links in the show notes. For video highlights from today's episode, just search for Alert Media on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. Stay safe out there.
Thank you for listening to the Employee Safety Podcast from Alert Media, the industry's most intuitive emergency communication and threat intelligence solution. To learn more about how to protect your people and business during critical events, visit alertmedia.com. Until next time.